Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkin, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkin, your host, and today I have with me Miss Jennifer Hernandez. She is a single mother of 4 and has worked in the mortgage industry for over 18 years. Now, she says it's definitely had its ups and downs, but her determination has never allowed her to quit. And in the past 3 years, she has been named top 1% of loan officers in the U.S., the Scotsman's Guide top producer, FHA's top 50 in the nation, and National Association of Real Estate Professionals top 250 producer. Number 1 for FHA lending in the state of Illinois in 2021, top woman originator. Clients praise her for going above and beyond and helping their dreams become a reality. She's also known for saving deals and finding solutions for issues. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get into your story and hear more about you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so awesome for you to be here. It's like I was telling you right before we hopped on and started recording, I always love bringing on successful entrepreneurs, people who have really made it. And because it's so inspirational to so many others that, you know, we live in a climate right now where it can seem impossible, especially if you're just getting started in real estate or just in entrepreneurship in general. So I'm excited to hear about your story. I know you have a story that's kind of led you here. It didn't come overnight, and it didn't come without some blood, sweat, and tears.
A lot of tears, a lot of tears. That is for sure.
Well, and this is really I feel like this is the beauty of inspiration, is being able to like take others on that journey of your story and then being able to share that it's possible for you, it's possible for others. And with a list of achievements like that, I mean, that's impressive, very impressive.
Yeah, I definitely didn't take the easy way in anything in life. That is for sure.
Do you find that not taking the easy way has built in you resilience, has built in you strength that you maybe didn't know you had?
It's what God's designed for me, because if everything that I have been through in life wouldn't have taken place the way that it did, I wouldn't be here today having this conversation with you. I wouldn't be able to touch the people that I'm meant to inspire and to motivate and to encourage. So I had to go through every single thing in order for me to be able to come back and share and bring those up who were where I was at, who were lost with no hope, self-sabotaging at the, you know, at their worst, you know. And I want to be able to for them to just hear something and spark that, knowing that they are really in control of their destiny and no circumstances can keep us where we're at.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's a decision, right? I mean, we can wallow in self-pity when things happen to us, or we can get up and use that as fuel. But it's not always cut and dry, and it's not always easy. I talk to a lot of people, and it's not always easy to take that road and make that choice. But I definitely want to get into your story and kind of where this all began. What led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't take traditional ways of life. I had some abandonment issues when I was 11. My mom moved out of state, and my dad took over as guardian. Up until that point, I had lived with my mom, and the parenting was very different in the households. My dad's 100% Italian, so he's very stern, and we swear a lot. That's like our normal communication. We're very loud, and it's not like we're yelling. That's just how we communicate. So It's very different. It's very different. And by the time I was 13, I was actually running away from home, looking for love in all the wrong places, started doing drugs and alcohol, just really self sabotaging in every way I possibly could. Uh, what I found is that I was missing like acceptance and love, and I actually found it hanging out on the streets of Chicago. So my parents, I would come home with like cars shot up, windows busted out, just they're lucky that like I was alive. Like they were happy that I was alive. And when I would run away, this is back in the day when we didn't have cell phones. So they wouldn't get them. They would, unless I went to the payphone and called them, they would have no idea where I was until I decided to call or walk through the door. So I put them through a lot. And I had straight F sophomore year, kicked out of high school, sent to an alternative program. My parents desperately tried to save me from myself, but the truth is that no one can save us until we're ready to be saved. So they had me locked up in adolescent facilities, and we really never got to the bottom of anything. And I think each time I went, I got worse and worse. But I did end up graduating through the alternative program I was in. After graduation, I was 17, ended up homeless right after, off and on until I was 19. At 19, I got pregnant, and my daughter was my reason to change my life. She gave the life I was living, I was going to end up dead or in jail. And so I named her Destiny and moved out of the neighborhood, and I actually started to dream within a couple years after that. And then, what happened was I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I can see this life that I want. I had one uncle who was very successful, took vacations every year, had a beautiful home, and I wanted a big house, in-ground pool, rental properties, vacation home. I wanted to take my family on vacations every year, just like he did. And within 3 years, I had it all of it. I was making over 6 figures. I worked my way up in the car business from a switchboard operator to a finance manager. And then finally, in the car business, it's not designed for women. It's the most difficult environment for us to be in. It was really tough. I was working 60 plus hours a week. My daughter missed me. And the truth is if you have money and no time, what's the point? For me, there was no point in that. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to show up at all her, school events and do all the things. So the car business let me go, and I was able to go into the mortgage industry, and it was like second nature. I was very, very good, and I made 6 figures in 6 months, and I was like, this is perfect. I didn't realize at the time that I was so good at it, and I couldn't understand why it was. And the reason I was good at it is because I have a heart for serving others and I want to make an impact. And so by helping people achieve the dream of home ownership, I'm doing just that. So
Hmm.
it wasn't work. It was literally what I was designed to do. It was impact people's lives in one way or another.
And you fell into that, or I shouldn't say fell into it, but you got into the mortgage industry pretty young. How old were you?
Yeah. So I was like 27, about
Mm.
26, 27 when I
Yeah.
got in.
And so that's remarkable that you kind of found your passion that early on. I mean, I think some people go a lifetime looking and seeking out their passion. But it came with lots of things, trauma, different things that you dealt with early on in life. Um, so tell me a little bit about like what was that process as you made this decision? You actually had this pinnacle moment of having your daughter and wanting to make a better life for her, and then going out and making the money, realizing you don't have the time. So you had these mile markers, but
Mhm.
what was that like when you really began to like put your initiative into creating something successful versus going the path that you were going down, this kind of negativity with the drugs and the alcohol and the different things?
So I think I felt like I had a second chance to redo it and create the life that I wanted, not the one that I was born into, right? And so that was really my motivation. Like, and I didn't want, I, I didn't know where my trauma had come from at this point in my life, um, but I knew that I did not feel good, hence why I was sabotaging myself. And then I ended up, some of the situations I put myself in, I ended up losing all self-respect for myself. And so I knew what that felt like. And I knew that I wanted to make sure that I did something different so that she didn't take the same route in life that I would. Because honestly, I don't know how, like, parents, I don't know how they made it through. Like, I can't even imagine what that would have been like, and um, I truly don't as a parent. But like, I didn't realize at the time either that there was a shift that happened for me when I seen the life that I wanted versus the one that I was living. And what I can tell people is like, especially when I was homeless, like, we're just trying to survive from day to day, right? And we don't know where we're going to sleep that night. So we're definitely not thinking about the future, and we're not seeing the life we want because we're so stuck in surviving. And the sooner you can see the life you desire versus the one you're living in, the faster you will get there. Because we are our own worst enemy, and we are the ones who create the path for ourselves. I didn't care about life. I had no self-worth. I didn't, and so I had to, my daughter gave that back to me, gave some of that back to me, and slowly I started to find more love for myself. But truthfully, it was not an easy battle. And I have to tell you, like, 2023, so I'm 46 now, and just this year, when I'm between 45 and 46, like, I'm finally learning how to love myself. And now I have four kids. I gave birth to twins in 2006. So I'm a mother of four, and my kids are, my youngest are 17, my twins are 17, and I'm just figuring out how to love me. But I've tried to give them all the love that I could ever give them.
Mhm.
This thing called life is just a beautiful journey of our self-discovery, and really trying to evolve to our heightened level.
I totally agree with you. And I had a previous conversation with another guest that come on the podcast, and we were talking about this. Like, I do believe there's a shift that happens in our 40s. So it's like struggle with this thing of getting older, but you really do get wiser. it's it's a
Yeah,
strange
for
phenomenon.
sure, Wanda, for
Yeah,
sure.
because I can relate to that as well. Like, there's a lot of shift that happened in my 40s when I crossed over that mile marker of 40 years old. It was like there, I can look back and see that there's lots of shifts that's happened, and I just think we start to look at life a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But I do think also we're carrying with us like all the things that we've kind of picked up throughout life, and learning to put those things back down, some of those things back down, learn from them, but then also not carry them around as baggage. Um,
Mhm,
but you said something that was interesting, about, you say you're just now starting to really learn to love yourself. And
mhm.
in the past, when you went down this kind of negative road, you were struggling with validation. Was it validation issues? It was, you
Just
said
acceptance and
abandonment.
like acceptance. And feeling loved.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think I could have definitely used more of that. And so that's why I looked for it elsewhere.
Yeah. Do you think this is something that everybody struggles with on some level, or do you think that that specifically came from the abandonment that you felt?
No, it wasn't. So um, I used to think, because, when my life really shifted in the way that I was as a child shifted, was when it all coincided with when my mom left. Okay. But the truth is that my mom left and my dad took over. Now, my dad was the fun weekend dad before. He was never the one to help us do the homework, cook, feed us, do that whole thing. And like I said, also, we swore at each other and we spoke very loud. And so can you imagine an 11-year-old girl? And then, he was very scarred too, because the relationship with my parents didn't work out. And literally, I will tell you, because I've been dealing with this lately and it's been coming up a lot, is like, anytime we would drove past somebody that was getting married, he'd be like, "Oh, poor sucker, life's a bitch, then you die or you marry one." And I'm a young girl. And this is like hardwired in me, like every single time I ever see someone getting married. it's not good for me. It wasn't good for me. you know,
Mm-hmm.
that, that perception of like, that's what life is, So it was really tough. And not until a couple years ago, because my dad was the only parent that I had, I couldn't see the damage that he really caused me. And it wasn't intentional. The thing is that nobody does anything to us intentionally. It's the abuse that they've had. It's what they learned. It's how their parents raised them, and they're just rolling it over to you. But this generation, the consciousness in 2024, our kids require us to do our work. There's too much social media motivation, inspiration. Like, I didn't know any of that until I was well into my 30s. Never heard any of it. Like manifesting, I didn't know any of those things. Like, that was a self-discovery on its own. And when I did discover that, yes, I was able to start realizing where I had already done that in life. But like, to come back to it, I couldn't see what my dad did because without him, I had no one. And the truth is that he did everything he could for me, but it wasn't enough. And sometimes it's not. You can be there, you can physically be there in reality, but if you're not to communicate, if you don't know how to communicate with me, if I don't feel loved from you, if I feel like material possessions are more important than human life, that is not a good feeling. And so the truth is that until a couple years ago, I didn't even know that. It just all coincided with my mom leaving. So I assumed most of it was from that. But the truth is that, and this is, I plan on doing a TED talk on this, and this is the first time I'm saying this, but the truth is that little girl's first love is her daddy. And the way he treats her and he makes her feel, she will continue to look for throughout her life. And I continue to call men into my life that were going to treat me the way that he treated me. And it wasn't like he treated me really bad, because on the surface I didn't know. But the truth is that I never felt good enough. And for me to never feel good enough for my father, that would lead me to call in men who would treat me like I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not worthy. And I had this subconscious belief that that was all I deserved. And it's not. And it took, like I said, because without him, I would have had no one. I couldn't see that. And so the only way I figured it out is that every single time someone treated me less than, or like I wasn't good enough, I would literally, that everybody's like, oh, well, I'll go 0 to 100 real quick. Well, that was my 0 to 100 real quick. Like, it's a trigger where I will. And so our triggers are our childhood trauma, and those make you snap. We don't realize that we're snapping because that's our inner childhood wound. So it's very important that we pay attention to those things, right? Because those are the things that are going to help reveal the trauma. Mm-hmm. So I dug really deep into it, and I finally realized it. And then I had to come back and I had to apologize to my children because I let a lot of things go. And we teach people how to treat us, right? And I allowed people to treat me less than, and I had to let them know that that wasn't acceptable, and that's no longer me going forward. That old version of me is now gone and dead. I'm rebirthed as a new individual, much more conscious, 100% responsible for everything that I call into my life. So I know when something shows up that isn't what I want to be dealing with, I have to evaluate why. What is this here to teach me? Mm-hmm. Am I not honoring myself enough that I'm allowing these type of people access to me? What is it that is happening and that I'm not honoring and living to my full potential that I'm calling this experience in? And I can grow from it. And it's just beautiful.
Have you been through therapy to deal with childhood trauma?
So this is a more stickier stuff. Yeah, I have been through a lot of therapy. I was locked up in different adolescent facilities as a child. I even went to school at I went to school at a hospital for over a month. And I'm going to be honest with you, they didn't get to the issues of anything. They didn't get to the issues of anything. It wasn't until like my self-healing and working with the psychotherapist that literally, we started to reveal some of these things. And I will say the thing that we have to be careful of with counseling and therapists are most of the people who want to help others is because they have their own trauma. And are just because you got a PhD or you have a degree doesn't mean that you've done your work and you've healed. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very important, like people, you know, and the other thing is as a child, and I'm saying this and I'm going to be screaming this as much as I possibly can. As a child, if your child is acting out, they don't need drugs. They don't need like your discipline. They need you to sit down as parents and figure out what you have done for them. What is it that you've done that they're feeling the way that they are? Is a lot of times they're just, like I said, they're just doing what they did. And the truth is that I became a mom at 20, right? So I did some of those things that my dad, like the ways he talked to me and things like that. I did the same thing to my children because we know not what we do. But then when I figured out where I, that was wrong, and I'm actually, I caused them damage. I had to come back and fix the damage and help them heal before they become, adults, and before they go to look for love in all the wrong places, and then get married and have children without even healing the trauma that I caused them. Because truth be told, I've caused them some trauma. I wasn't healed, you know and so we have to be responsible, and we have to come back and and say, like, well, I didn't know that, but I know that now, and let's fix this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Well,
really hard.
yeah,
So
it
hard.
is. But I asked the therapy question because to me, as an outsider or someone who has just met you, I mean, we've talked once or twice before this, but it sounds like you have done a lot of work. You have done a lot of growth and healing. And I can hear that in the way that you talk when I just was just meditating on this just this morning about how, being able to forgive someone, especially someone that where you can look into their life and you can say, well, these are the areas of toxic childhood trauma that was in their life. Therefore, they can't be that for me. Being able to look into that in someone else to me is huge because human nature says, oh, this they did me wrong, so I'm gonna retaliate or I'm gonna withhold or I'm gonna resent them or be angry with them. And even hearing you speak about your father, that's not what I'm hearing you say. And it reminds me, have you read the book Extreme Ownership? I think it's
No, not yet.
Jocko Willnick. I actually heard him speak at a live
Me
event.
too. Actually, I heard Jocko speak. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He spoke a lot about this, and I brought this home to my kids, and I'm like, we have to take extreme ownership. Like, if something's going wrong in our life, we first, I look at me. I'm like, what have I done? What bad decisions have I made? What trauma that I have dealt with in the past has made me make these bad decisions? What about it? Am I attracting this type of energy or this type of person or this type of toxicity into my life? And it just changes the whole perspective. For in my life, it has, from the victim mentality to the, like, okay, now it's a solution, a problem solver. I can be a problem solver. I can figure out the thing and change it for next time.
Well, there's so much more peace that comes with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm not like, oh my gosh, something's going wrong in my life again. Like, I'm like, yes, this is so beautiful because there is nothing in my life that happens to me. It all happens for me, and it's there for me. So, like, I just went, you know, I just went through a big ordeal with someone who is very close to me, really, really good friend. And, there was like some behavior that like I let slip because I have not always been a great person, like, and we know not what we do. And so like but it showed up, and it had to be such betrayal and such deception because it has to teach me that I cannot continue to ignore it when the red flags come up. Like when the lies are coming and the manipulation, like I can't make an excuse for you. I can't I can't just continue to say like I was you once, and I actually, it's funny because I had several conversations with her. I'm like, I feel like you do this a lot and I was you, so you really should start diving into why you're doing that, because there's something there, and I'm trying to, like, I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to help you because I was you, but I gave so much compassion for that it literally had to take so much deception just to teach me that like I need to have better boundaries for myself, and not everybody needs to have access to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I need to surround myself with people who have nothing but integrity and lead a life of integrity. And anybody other than that, really, I just can't, because they'll dim your light and bring you to their level. And that's not where we're meant to be. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, as much
Yeah.
as you can, and I forgive everybody. Like I'm over it. Like I don't have a problem. You don't have access though. Like there's going to be healthy boundaries. Um, you know, you don't have access. So I remember when time period when I went through it with like you touched on forgiveness. It's the most important thing we can do, because we're literally, as if we have hate or anger for a person, we're like a hamster on a cage, and we're just like, we're stuck in it. They're not thinking about you. They don't care about you. I don't have any of that. Like that's gone, you know. I don't have any of it for anyone. And, the people who will read my book, and I have to say, so no one can stop me but me on Amazon. But like when you read my book, you're gonna see so many people who like kind of wronged me in my life, but it's so beautiful because I set up those boundaries to protect myself. I forgave them, and then I can see like where like I'm grateful for them. Like I'm so grateful for them because they played a role in, like, for example, like I had a really tough relationship with my stepmother. And if it wasn't for her, my dad would be alone, because it took her. That's the type of person he needed. Like our matches are our mirrors to make us deal with ourselves and to help us
Mm-hmm.
heal. And so who am I to judge that? And once you set up healthy boundaries, you don't have to, they don't need to change, because when you heal, you'll be able to allow them in with the with the appropriate boundaries, that the damage cannot be caused anymore, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
respect it. It'll be good.
That's so true, and it's so powerful. And I'm recently, just like currently, reading this book, Letting Go. Have you read that book? Oh my
Uh-uh.
gosh, that book is that's amazing. I think it should be a prerequisite for life. Like everybody should read it. I'm trying to remember the author. I'll put it in the show notes, but I think it's David Hawkins, maybe. But that book is so good because he puts everything into perspective, and basically what you just described. That's why I thought you might have read the book, because it's so true. And just letting go of stuff, like why carry that? To me, it's energetic, and it's like he says in this book, and I've meditated on this a lot. The whole idea of energy and energetic force, and certain emotions and things carry these different energies, and it's like I don't want that bad energy in my life. So the only way to rid myself of that is to truly forgive, truly let go, truly just exactly what you said. Once you put those boundaries, you said it so perfectly. Once you put those boundaries in place, it frees you to where now you can allow people to be them, and you can be you without guilt, without anger or animosity or any of those things.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's so much more peaceful, so much more loving. And people don't realize those bag of bricks that you're carrying on your back, distress causes disease. Period. So if you live in a state of distress, do not wonder why there is disease coming. You can't stay there. You have to
Mm-hmm.
unleash it. And a lot of us stay stuck there. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was a way that people would go on this journey of self discovery and self healing, because we all attach these things throughout life. These things attach to us. It's like you give the visual of having a bag of bricks. It's just we attach these things throughout life. And it's like if we can't get to a place where we can let some of that, like unload some of that, it begins to tear us apart. So in your experience, how did you get to the place of like really figuring all this out? And was this something that you kind of gained and you started doing? Was it hard for you to start exercising, or was it something that was pretty easy once you were made aware of it?
There was nothing easy about this. This is the most difficult work and most painful work that you'll do in your life. And, over the last 3 years has been like my heightened level of successes. And you can look on my social media and it looks like I've just been living life. Well, that's not true. I have I've cried so many tears. It has been so painful. I have lost so many people that were just not meant to be in my life anymore. And it is really painful because it's almost like you're dying. The older version of you that you thought you were is being buried. And I had to start when I started. I like started working on like my limiting beliefs and you know putting like those at bay and really just not allowing them into the word of the tongue is the most important thing. What we speak is what it is. And so learning that and being able to learn some control. The other thing that happened is that when we're meant to change, like, and you're going through like this period of great growth, every relationship in your life will show up to give you what you need to work on. And the truth is that my personal relationship I was in was showing up that way. My partnership was showing up that way. My relationship with my daughter was showing up this way. And all of them had one common denominator. And that was like the feeling of me not being good enough for them. And I'm like, and then it finally blew up to where I figured it out. It's because that subconsciously is what I felt like my whole entire life from the most important man in my first love, which was my father. So once I healed that, I was like, no, I know this now. And the minute you know it, it doesn't have the same hold on you. It doesn't have the same effect, but there is still layers of it. I thought I know I'm really healed, but like my brother, me and my brother ended up living with my dad, and he's still able to like get to something down in there. So I still have work to do. We all just still have a lot of work to do, and it's an ongoing journey, but it is a beautiful journey, and there's a lot more peace. And I believe that now that I'm learning how to love myself, I'll be able to call into my life the love that I desire. And
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be beautiful. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
excited.
Do you believe that? So, I talk to a lot of different people on the podcast, but just in general too. Um, do you believe that everybody has these self limiting thoughts, self limiting mindsets around something? So we have these different areas in our life, and I've been kind of looking at this, but I can't really get a definitive answer or a satisfactory answer for myself. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. So, like, you have someone who, like, when I hear you talk, it seems like success came natural, but you struggled with love or the validation. I know in other people, like, that maybe like love and relationships come easier, but maybe success or money issues are harder.
Right.
Or you have someone who maybe both of those things come really easy, but then they struggle with health problems. Like, do you think that everybody struggles on some level, and those vices, those limiting beliefs that we struggle with, that is our journey in, like you said, putting a mirror in front of us and figuring out those things, like that is our journey to learn ourself the best. I hope I asked that in a way you can understand.
I do believe that everybody has something. We are all imperfect beings in a very, very imperfect world. And there's no perfection. There's not. Like, I firmly believe like everybody has a struggle with something. And theirs could be less than others. Um, but there's something, like I just I believe that to be true. Um, the other thing I will say, and I've been very vocal about this recently too, is I believe too that like our money masks our pain, because when I have money, I'm able to like go shopping, um, take a trip, buy myself something, and those are ways of not dealing with what's really going on in me and kind of ignoring it. But when you're stripped of everything, it's really when, you know, you have to look in the mirror. And so I think it's a beautiful thing because I have gone through tons of ups and downs. I 5 years ago was living, uh, 6 years ago, I was living payday loan to payday loan to keep the lights on. So this isn't, I've been up and down. It's not been easy whatsoever, but I'm so grateful for the downs because if I never would have had the downs, I'm not sure that I would have ever got there. And I think for some people who have never had the downs, they haven't had a chance to deal with themselves. And so they, if they're lucky enough, when God strips them of everything, they will have to deal and evolve and fix what's really broken with inside them because the money is just masking it. And you can see it, you know, um, you can see it. So I truly believe everybody deals with it. It's just whether they actually have to or not, actually have to do the work and some people are complacent and they're fine with where they're at, and they don't want, they're okay. And so they might not get there, but
Mm-hmm. But I wonder, we think they're okay, but no one really knows the inner demons and the things that they struggle with. And I often think this too, like if we, well, there's another book, bring up another book. The Body Keeps the Score, and this is brought up a
oh
lot
yeah.
on the podcast. Which, if if we are stuffing stuff, we can do that for a long time before it begins to really kind of manifest. But eventually, it is it. I feel like eventually stuff is going to come out. I just think that we can harbor things for so long and it looks like that. But what you said just now is so right on. And I've never thought of it like this, but that whole thing of like money can mask things, because I do believe that's true. It's so
Mhm.
easy to get complacent when you have money versus when you don't. Because it forces you to look in yourself, and it forces you to be a problem solver to something, because you have to. You can't survive without money. You can't feed yourself, can't feed your kids. So you have to look inward. With some of these other things, you can self soothe with other things. If you don't have a relationship, but you have money, you can self soothe with, like you said, shopping or drugs or alcohol or pharmaceuticals, or, the
People
list
use
goes on.
gambling, like TV, sex, like they everything, food, like everybody has something,
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
really do.
But when your back's against the wall financially, it's like there's nothing I have to solve this problem. You have to. So I've never thought of it like that, but that's
And
profound.
when you said something too, and this is what I will say, because if people are having health issues, and like our body is talking to us, and I think I think it's actually easier to be, have nothing and then have to deal with yourself versus like, um have health issues, because we're just going to the doctor and having them try to fix us up, but the truth is that that would be a harder way to find the problem, you know is that when it's already attacking your body. Like I feel like that would be the most difficult time to like say like to look and say like, is something wrong? There's just something deeper inside of me that I'm holding on to. That's a really hard thing. So, we have to, that's why we have to just keep talking about it so that hopefully people will just start unloading those bricks off of their back and stop walking around with this stuff that they have bottled up inside until their health is completely gone.
Hmm.
Uh, that's just, I think it's just it's hard to have that self discovery at that point, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that especially in the culture that we live in, though, we have this thing of it's so easy to put a band-aid on stuff. So
Mm.
if I'm struggling with anxiety and I go to my doctor, he can give me pills to help me with the anxiety. And realistically though, it's like you mentioned early on, and in the podcast you said, we I don't need pills, I don't need drugs for this. I don't need drugs. If I'm suffering from anxiety, I need to figure out what's
Why?
causing the anxiety and learn to self regulate. Our bodies are so brilliant, they're able to self regulate. Um, but I even believe this with, anxiety is, let's say, mild compared to maybe cancer, where cancer is like, it's deathly. But when you really look at cancer, like, what is that? What is that caused from? Is it caused from years of stress or years of pent up anxiety or years of medication that they don't know side effects to? I mean, there's so many questions when it comes to that. But I think the problem with health is that still people are not, sometimes they think they're a problem solver by going to the doctor and the doctor pushing on them XYZ, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not always the answer. Now, granted, sometimes that is the answer. I mean, I'm not anti-medicine, but I
I
just
am.
don't believe in medicine for everything. Did you say you
I don't.
are?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, like if I have to have it, but I will tell you over the last couple of years that I've really gotten like that. That there's always an herbal, like remedy.
Mhm.
I was struggling with like some UTI issues at one point, and the doctor kept giving me back to back prescriptions and wasn't doing anything, and all I needed to take was like a cranberry pill, like you know why and then the antibiotics are then throwing off everything in the body. It's just it was more damage than, and it wasn't helping me, and I'm like, I'm done. That's when I was actually like, I'm done with this. You guys are not
Mhm.
helping me at all. They're just,
Mhm.
like you said, it's a band-aid they're putting on until you can come back. But now you're going to get me into a whole nother conversation. But that's why the United States, what's the biggest money maker? Pharmaceuticals, right? Health. Like no other country in the world has the top main things being health, but we are health, health,
Mhm.
and more health.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, which we're probably going down a rabbit hole here, but on the flip
we
side of
are.
that, you have the these things that are given to us and given to our kids that's causing these things. It's like
Yeah,
dyes. Have you ever researched what dye does to, kids? It's
no.
causing the ADHD and causing kids to be hyperactive and, and then, but yet, and if you look at this is crazy as well. Like dyes are not legal in most of the world, but America, they're legal. It's
So
ridiculous to me.
I hired an au pair and she came from Spain. And when she came to our grocery store, she was like, oh, she's like, we have like three breads. You have a whole aisle of breads. We have 10 cookies. You have 10 different Oreos. And it's crazy. She's like, your food in my country, it says like US food, do not eat is toxic. I'm like, yeah, I know. So
Yeah, and then they make us sick and then they push drugs on us and it's really sad and I just it's a hard topic to broach with a lot of people too. Um because I wish people would at least open their eyes and ask questions, and that's really like my heart behind this entire podcast is just like bringing awareness and bringing things that people don't like to talk about and then bringing solutions, general
mhm.
solutions to issues that, maybe it's not what mainstream is pushing down our throats. Maybe we have a brain, we're fully functioning humans to be able to think through things and come up with our own solutions. But it goes back
Mhm.
to this whole thing of, you know, do I want to grow? Do I want to get better? Or do I want to
Yeah,
just live in a matrix? You know?
right.
Uh,
We definitely just went down the rabbit hole there.
yeah, yeah.
We're
It
gonna come out of
happens.
it. Otherwise, we'll just like, yeah.
So tell me, Jennifer, with like you've experienced all this success, like you obviously are very, very well spoken, very knowledgeable when it comes to healing and all of these things. I can see that you've had a lot of growth in your life. And what what would you say to someone else who maybe maybe they're in this process or they're in this up and down cycle and they're just trying to figure life out. They're trying to figure out, where to go from here. What advice would you give them?
The first thing that I would say really is just if you're not like where you want to be in life, and if there's any like disdain for the way that you're living or the way that you feel or the success that you have, I mean, with social media, there's so much coaching at your fingertips, so many books, like the books that you just said. We need to read them, listen to the TikToks that are going through all of these things. Invest in yourself. The greatest thing I did was invest in myself. The only reason I'm here and like able to speak like in regards to my healing and actually have had my healing is because I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and, you know, conferences. And the greatest investment you'll make is into yourself. Stop buying stuff and start investing in you. Then you don't have to, you don't have to be stuck in that place. You can bring in the life you desire. And definitely, everybody has a coach. The more successful you become, the greater the coach you're going to hire. Everybody works with somebody. So that's what I would really say.
And would you call yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. So doing mortgages is 100% commission. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
100%
do
self.
you believe that entrepreneurship has this secret underlying like it forces you to figure these things out and figure out the places that you're lacking? Do you believe entrepreneurship helps with that healing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you go through so many ups and downs. We don't just show up and get a paycheck and that's just it. We have to think outside the box, craft solutions, evolve. It just depends. Everybody has different wants, but whatever your wants are, yeah, as an entrepreneur, you're always having to like evolve. So I do believe that. And that's why, too, like, the entrepreneur who's not doing this kind of work, that's bad because we go through such roller coasters. You need it and that's why a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with like addiction or you know depression and things like that. Don't do that. Just get the work and do the work, and you'll continue to, because there is so many peaks and valleys in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. You have to learn to self-regulate your emotions, I think.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship has probably been the very best thing for my self-growth because every time I run into a problem with entrepreneurship, I it forces me to go seek out an answer, seek out a solution, and in seeking out those solutions, sometimes I find the things that I needed that I didn't even know I needed. um, that book, Letting Go, the one that I'm reading right now, was actually recommended to me by a mentor, and he is helping like with building a business, increasing my business, and it's like then he recommends this book and I'm just like, okay, this must have to do with business, going to help my business, but it helps me as a person. But I think becoming that person, it's required to
Okay.
level up. Go
So
ahead,
you
girl.
just touched on something. You just touched on something. So entrepreneurs are always quick to go to the next conference or buy the next sales course and buy the whatever. Investing in you is going to expand you, and it's going to bring in everything that you want. No course can buy, no conference is going to give. Like, yes, you're going to pick up things from there, but the best and greatest work and the greatest investment is in you. And when you do that, then everything can come, so then you just go to the conferences and the different things to pick up little tips and tricks. But yes, it's the greatest thing, because then you can call in everything you desire to life.
Mhm.
So
I agree. And I heard, I was at a conference earlier, well, last year, the end of last year, and I heard one of the speakers say that he believes that entrepreneurs are the ones that is going to, he's like, our churches have failed us, our government has failed us, like all these places have failed us, but entrepreneurs really are the ones that love people and serve people and not, I mean, it's hard to group an entire, group of people under one label, but for the most part, and in my experience of being at conferences or being around other people, groups, masterminds, whatever, it seems to me like there really are people that care and they want to serve. And you said that when we first sat down today, that this is your heart, is to serve. And I believe that, and just to my listeners, I would say this, like, look up to the people that are doing the work. And sometimes that's entrepreneurs. And you also brought up this, which is an interesting fact of sometimes therapists and counselors and the people that we go to help with our mental health. Sometimes they're dealing with their own traumas. So I believe you have to navigate through that journey of life and figure out what works for you, but don't discount the people that are truly doing the work, because there's so much value there in just going through the process and doing the work and being able to inspire and encourage other people.
There's one more thing that I will say, and it's, don't try to run from your problem either. So I used to do that. The problem with running from it is you're running from yourself, and you're carrying your mirror with you, and it's going to show up again. But now the situation is going to get worse and worse and worse until you have no choice but to deal with it. So if you can stay and learn the lessons and see why, if you can understand that the things that show up in life are for you, and try to figure out what they're here to teach you, then you're going to move past it. Otherwise, you're just going to run right back into it. And I've had to do that, so that, it's just easier if you really try to sit in it for a minute and figure out why it showed up, so that you can evolve to the next level. And new levels, new devils. That is 100% for sure. So the lessons will get harder, but it's beautiful.
It's growth. That's what growth is. And it's like, if you ask someone, do you want to grow or do you want to stay stagnant? If you ask me that, I'm going to say I want to grow. Is it going to be hard? Yeah. Is it going to hurt? Am I going to have growing pains? Yeah. I still want to grow. I don't want to stay stagnant. So I would ask you if you had a takeaway, but I think you just said it. However, if you have anything else you'd like to add, I would, feel free to.
Guys, my book actually launches on the 16th. It is on pre-sale on Amazon. It's No One Can Stop Me But Me. It's my life story. You can actually follow me on Instagram at I am Jen Hernandez. It's JENN Hernandez. Also, if you've ever been denied for a mortgage or looking to be a homeowner and nobody has really crafted the solution to help you do so, or if you're a realtor who has deals dying, please send your clients my way. Amber can drop my phone number, and also my link to apply is approvedbyjen.com. JEN approvedbyjen.com.
It's awesome. Obviously she knows what she's talking about. So definitely I'll
experiences that helped me do that. So this can't be taught.
Yeah. I will pass your information along, and all of her information as well will be in the show notes. If you missed, her saying all of that, it will definitely be in the show notes as well. And Jennifer, it has been such a pleasure just talking with you and getting to know you. And what a remarkable story of just self-growth. I heard this thing today about how sometimes, it may have been in that book, Letting Go, but I can't remember. But he was talking about the flower, and how the flower just begins to like open up and bloom. And he was talking about how our human existence is like that too. And just talking to you, I do feel like I see that in you, and it's beautiful. And I love what you're doing. I love your heart behind what you're doing in providing people homes, but then just also providing people inspiration. That's huge.
Yeah, I'm excited for this journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.